Hello and welcome to the Gooner Talk, back again with you guys for another show and another episode of our Raw Reaction series in the Arsenal Transfer Show, episode 163, as we have just 1 week left of the January transfer window. Interesting news regarding strikers, changing of targets, and my thoughts on what would be a sensible end to the January window. But it would require, rather, Arsenal to spend quite a significant amount of money. I hope you're doing good. I hope you're doing well. I know that yesterday's result was very disappointing. We're going to be talking about all that and more on tonight's Arsenal Lounge. I'll be joined by, or rather, I will be joining Mo, Shaheen and Lev over on the Arsenal Lounge. So make sure that you check us out at 8 p.m. this evening. Good morning to everybody in the chat box. Matt G, Jose, Liam Rohit. We've got John T. We've got Paul Perez, Colin, Mike, Ty Gunnosaurus. Good morning to you, Carl, Prince. We've got Ole, we've got Ashley, we've got Julian, Bruce, Mo Fowler, we've got Femi, Rahil, Tony, Leon. Thank you to so many of you for tuning in as always. Answer, Dan, Brad Lynch. We've got Ole again. We've got Jez. We've got Paul Haley's. We've got Tim Jallo as well. Good morning to everybody. Sorry that I can't read out all your names. There's quite a few of you. Do drop a like if you haven't done so already on the video. Do subscribe to the channel as well if you haven't done so. We'll also I'll be live on the Arsenal Way at 9:30 as well this morning, so make sure you join us over there at 9:30 a.m. to talk about the latest regarding Vlahovic and Alexander Isak, which we're going to discuss in today's show as well, and get some of your thoughts in the chat box. We kick off, though, with the first story of the day, which is Mikel Arteta confirming that Takahiro Tomiyasu will be out for, quote, a few weeks due to a groin problem. Arsenal quoted it as a minor groin problem on their website. 4 weeks is not that minor. So that was a little bit of a pulling the wool over people's eyes, unfortunately. Does this open up the need for Arsenal to sign someone in this position? It certainly affects my choice of central midfielder, and I'll come on to that in a little bit. But I think it certainly does affect things. I don't think Cedric, I don't think Chambers, I don't think Ben White as cover is enough when Tomiyasu is simply not there. We need to bring someone in who can offer us more. Fingers crossed Arsenal have the ability to do that. But that's a very disappointing piece of news. And Mikel Arteta continued to talk about transfers yesterday. He was asked several questions. When he was asked about using the market, he said it's what we planned, but the market is difficult. It's complicated. We knew that we have to make the right decisions with the players that we believe are going to really help us and try to bring in the ones that can take us to the next level. He was asked about other things. He said on if he expects incomings before the deadline. He said, well, we were certainly trying, but I don't know if we're going to be able to do it. Let's see if it's not only our intention, but a lot of facts that are needed to happen. In regards to signing anyone sooner, he says, I think that's the dream of every manager, to have them in the team on the first day, but it isn't realistic. And in this window as well, the history of this window, a lot of them happen right at the end. And then on how important it is to get the right people in the door, he says players that come here have to be able to take us to the next level. We already have a level and we want to see much better standards than we already have. And that is how we're going to recruit. Speaking of who Arsenal are going to recruit, the player that doesn't seem to be during this window, at least, is Dominic Calvert-Lewin. It is reported that Arsenal are, quote, fascinated by the Everton striker, despite the fact that he does not look like he's going to be joining Arsenal during this transfer window. But it would be one that they may revisit in the summer if no one comes in during this current transfer window. There are not more than just simply Arsenal, though, interested in Dominic Calvert-Lewin. It is said that West Ham have joined the race. It is also said that Atletico Madrid are another side that are interested in Dominic Calvert-Lewin. So Arsenal, should they wait until the summer to sign Calvert-Lewin, it will mean that they will be up against some other sides. But let's wait and see what happens with that. But that does not look like a deal that will happen in the final moments of the window. And the headline story of today, Dusan Vlahovic, Joe Barona's yet again, I think he's basically doing daily updates at this point on the striker, which is good for us, providing, of course, we're doing these shows. He says, we've not received any official bid for Vlahovic as things stand. We're open to discuss and negotiate, but we want Vlahovic and his agent to be clear on the future, as they're not answering. We need to talk about it continuously. Vlahovic's situation becomes more confusing. He is now out of the team entirely because he's reportedly tested positive for COVID, which means obviously any kind of move may prove even more difficult. But this is a real kind of head scratcher of a situation. Why he would even be played after the January window finishes, again, is a bit of a problem. Fiorentina obviously will need him, but he has treated them and his agent has treated them with such, real disrespect, in my view. Obviously, I'd still love to see him come to Arsenal, but just the lack of communication, the lack of clarity on his situation, it is really it's disappointing for Fiorentina, of course, and it's fortunate that they've managed to bring in Christoph Piatek to be a replacement, because they're going to need a replacement eventually when he does leave. The hope is that Fiorentina don't get into a position where Vlahovic does stay indeed to the end of his contract in 2023 and leaves for a huge deal, because that really would kind of signal the intentions of the player and the agent. Hopefully that doesn't happen to Fiorentina. I like Fiorentina because they're my Italian team. But besides that, it's just a frustrating situation for Arsenal, who don't look like they're going to be able to bring in Dusan Vlahovic. Artur, there is no update on Artur Mela today, unfortunately. Nothing has changed. Nothing has moved in that regard. Juventus are maintaining, and Allegri is maintaining, that Artur will remain a Juve player. And so therefore, if Arsenal want to sign a midfielder, they're going to have to look elsewhere. And speaking of looking elsewhere, I wanted to bring you kind of where my head's at regarding the rest of the January window. This is what I feel Arsenal are capable of. For midfield and for right back, Tyler Adams represents to me a really good option. A £32.5 million release clause in his contract makes him accessible. This is certainly a player that would improve us in the midfield. It would improve us through our right back cover position as well, because of his versatility. And his age profile fits exactly what Mikel Arteta is looking for. Really solid player. Go watch our tactical breakdown on him. Very highly praised when I spoke to Manuel Veit, and considered to be one of the best players in the Northern America as well. So I do, or North America rather, I do hope that he's a player that Arsenal continue to have on their radar. Weedy Marley, Spence is better than Adams. Deary me. No, Tyler Adams, playing for RB Leipzig in the Champions League, has played at central midfield, right back and right wing back for RB Leipzig as well. Fingers crossed we can see some movement in the final days of the window. Jonathan David doesn't look like he would move during January. However, I would be very interested to see Arsenal put down money towards Lille and towards the player, just to see what would happen. But if it does turn out that David is not going to be moving during the January window, Arsenal can activate the £75 million release clause in Alexander Isak's contract. Whilst I think that David would be the more obvious, the better striker for Arsenal to sign, Alexander Isak presents as a more gettable option because of that release clause. Still 22, has played with Martin Odegaard before, and I've written a piece about those two combining and how impressive they were playing with one another. So I do think that either of these two forwards would help us go forwards to the Champions League places. They improve on what we've already got. Isak, especially as well, with his height, his physicality, his hold-up plays, link-up plays, very, very good. But that is pretty much where it lies. There is some information that has just dropped about Pierre-Emerick Aubameyang as well, coming from David Ornstein. With Aubameyang losing the captaincy and not playing since December 6th for what the club has called his latest disciplinary breach, it is plausible that a solution will be found before the market shuts. Arsenal are understood to have received an offer from Saudi Arabian side Al Hilal to take the striker on loan with an option to buy and cover his full salary. There remains interest from European sides, including PSG, but the players' wages are expected to be a problem. David Ornstein does go on to talk about possible other signings. He says there are doubts about whether the pursuit of Dusan Vlahovic will succeed, not in relation to an agreement with Fiorentina, rather the forward and his representatives. But the North London team are actively exploring alternative options such as Real Sociedad's Alexander Isak. So there you go. A player that I thought that we might target come the end of the window, a player that makes a lot of sense to target come the end of the window. We'll have to wait and see if things do indeed change. And some interesting stuff about Julian Lopetegui being considered by Manchester United. But you can check out all the rest of that on The Athletic. That is going to conclude the main bulk of the first portion of the show, which means we now move on to the second half of the show. And of course, your questions. So if you do have any questions for the chat box, do throw them in and we'll go through as many of them as feasibly possible. Okay, let's see what you're going to be asking. If he says, who is the guy? Who is that 32.5 million? It's Tyler Adams, mate. And I'm sure that everyone in the chat box is telling you that it's Tyler Adams. Go watch some clips of him. Go see what you can do. Go watch our tactical breakdown of him. Very, very good player. Certainly someone that would improve on what we've already got and would provide us plenty of cover in the wide or fullback positions as well. Manu says, pick two. Give one to Spurs and bin one. Kessié, Kamara, Cantwell, and Zakaria. Kamara, who's as in Boubacar's Kamara, I imagine. Give Cantwell to Spurs, bin Zakaria, and go for Kessié and Kamara. That's who I would go for. Perez says, the like guys, smash it. If you could drop a like on the video, as Perez says, that would be very, very much appreciated. Thank you, as always, guys, for your continued support on the channel. John says, I've said this before, but worth repeating. If the answer is Eddie Nketiah, then the question is a massive problem. We must sign a striker during this window. Bring back Diaby and Kallstrom, says Ovic. Anthony says, do you think teams can exploit us in the window now they're aware how desperate we are? Anthony, I think clubs have known how desperate we are for a striker and a midfielder throughout the entirety of this January window. I don't think it's news to them, to be honest. To be 100% clear, they've known for a long time that Arsenal are absolutely desperate to try and sign someone. So, yes, they will take advantage, and they have been taking advantage of Arsenal, trying, of course, to get the players that they desperately want. Tim says, disappointing result, but can we talk about Odegaard's passing last night? Silky smooth, short through balls, coupled with long, accurate crosses. Incredible. Yeah, look, I can wax lyrical about Martin Odegaard all day. I can wax lyrical about how many people underestimated him, absolutely slandered him, wrote him off before he'd even been given a chance. And he's proven to be our best player, maybe bar Martinelli in December. And, you know, he's arguably been a standout this month. And the rest of the team has really kind of failed to reach his levels during this window as well. Welsh Gooner says, is Isaac actually that good? Yes, he is actually that good. He's a very good forward, very good striker. Has continued to progress. Sure, this season's not been electric at Real Sociedad, but you know, he's had the last two seasons have been very strong. 17 goals last season in 34 matches, and I think that he is in need of that step up. He's in need of that level to increase. He's in need of that extra kind of creativity around him. And I think his hold-up play and his link-up play would be excellent with Arsenal. And he's also a threat in the air and a good finisher. So fingers crossed that's what we'll see from him this season. Amandeep says, even if we miraculously reach the Champions League, do you think we have a squad that is deep enough? Not yet, Amandeep, but that's what the summer's for. And that's what that summer window would be for if we reached the Champions League. Ben White's passing as well. So Christopher, also very good. For 90 million release clause, to be honest, we may not have a choice, mate. We may not have a choice. And whether or not he's worth 75 million, do I think he's worth 75 million? No, I don't think he's worth 75 million, to be honest. But that's irrelevant when we need a striker, and the only way of getting him will be probably paying that release clause. Although David Ornstein did report that Arsenal tried to negotiate a lower fee. Let's wait and see. If it says we have played 2 Premier League games in January, we are so lucky. Yeah, we are. That is the fortunate thing, is we've only played the 2 games. We've only picked up 1 point in them, but that's 2 games, and fingers crossed we can turn around our season with the games in the months to come. Captain Arsenal says, if we get Isaac, would we still need Jonathan David? I think that we would still need to go for another striker, because Lacazette's going to go and Nketiah is going to go. Aubameyang looks like he can leave. We could end up needing to push for another striker. And David, I think, would be a really good option to go with Isaac in the summer. Navarro says, Tom, that was an amazing performance. Surely would sign Arteta. Christopher says, we should put a 50 million bid in and negotiate. I agree with you, Chris. Dennis says, Tom, do you think the game would have been different with Partey and Xhaka? Absolutely, without a shadow of a doubt. Like, we need to. Arsenal just play so much better with they've got those 2 central midfielders, be it Partey, Xhaka, Lokonga, whoever. We play better with the 2. We've had to play without them because of the circumstances of the squads, but that's been put down by Xhaka and Partey's mistakes. Fingers crossed when they return against Wolves, we'll have the players that we need. We'll also have the El Neni and Pepe back for the games against Wolves and beyond. So we've also got those options from the bench as well. David Kincaid says, if Arsenal paid a release clause for Isaac, would they have to pay it all immediately, or could it be broken down into installments? Usually what happens, David, is that release clauses can be paid in installments. You can structure a deal so that you reach that release clause and those payments come through in certain in certain increments, but that will be included in the clauses of the release clause in the contract. So if the contract that he signed has a release clause that must be paid in full, then you have to pay it in full. But if there's more leniency, and if also you can negotiate with the club saying, look, we're willing to pay the 75 million release clause, but we're going to pay it over the course of 3 seasons in 25 million pound chunks, then maybe that's what they would do. But we'll have to wait and see. Jabu says, why is the January window so difficult? Can we not take all of our money and buy Declan Rice and a forward, then go for the free transfers? Because it's not like FIFA, is the honest answer, because players are difficult to move in the January window, because clubs are more resistant to selling during the January window, because they then have to find a replacement for those strikers. It's an incredibly difficult period to try and get players in, and it's just not very simple. Man like Brett says, is it just me, or does Martinelli need to pass more? No, he needs more support, man like Brett. He needs players around him, and he just didn't have that support yesterday that he needed. And he's trying to make stuff happen, because when he does pass, it's not leading to anything with the players that he's passing to, bar maybe Ødegaard's. Tierney just isn't delivering at the moment like we need him to. And Martinelli, I don't blame him for being a lot more direct than the other players on the pitch. PJT says, how much respect do you still give to Arteta's outlook, having to convince players to join, given the difficulties they might have had with Vlahovic? Does Arsenal's needs outweigh such morals? Now, look, Vlahovic was always going to be a very difficult one to sign. Absolutely. We knew that. It doesn't matter who's the manager of Arsenal. You're in a situation where Arsenal's stock is just not as high as the clubs that will be looking to sign the player in the summer. If he goes to somewhere like Spurs, though, then there's serious questions to be asked. But beyond that, that's kind of the situation, is that he knows he's going to have the likes of Juve, Man City possibly, Real Madrid maybe, after him in the summer. There's going to be the options for him that are a lot bigger than Arsenal. So let's wait and see what happens. Alan says, what about the refereeing yesterday? Not just the Arsenal game, refereeing generally was bad. Yeah, look, Tierney faced a red card challenge from Westwood. Jota should not have had a penalty given. It's ridiculous how poor the referee and the officiating is in this country, but it's the reality that we have right now, and we can't change that. We've got to hope for the authorities to change that. It's just really frustrating when we find ourselves in this situation that we can't change, have no control over, and is affecting our season. I mean, how many times have we seen a situation where Arsenal's players have either been sent off too harshly, penalties have been given against us, other players have not been sent off, other penalty decisions have not been given? How many times has that happened this season? Loads. If we'd have had those decisions fall correctly, we could be in a very different place in the season that we are right now. Paul says, did we peak in December and leave nothing for January? I hope not, Paul, but it does feel like the momentum, because of the COVID outbreak and because of the Liverpool controversy, there's really kind of, it's dug underneath the foundations that we built up in December, and that's caused our form to absolutely just collapse. Ethan says, Lukaku and Martial both had a fallout, both back in the team in a week. Why can't Aubameyang come back? Maybe because of how he's reacted differently to Lukaku and Martial, Ethan. Maybe he's reacted differently to things and we just don't know. We'll have to wait and see. Arsenal Legend says, what I can't understand is, why does it take Arsenal so long to get deals done? This has always been the Arsenal weakness. We wasted so much time on Vlahovic and neglected the midfield position. I don't think that, look, you can go after more than one player at one time. It's not a case of we're wasting time on Vlahovic and so we can't go for the midfield. Edu met with Artur's agent in last week in London. He met with his agent in London. Artur wants to move, and Juventus don't want to sell him. Sometimes it's as simple as that. Like, Juventus don't want to sell him, but when a club says no, you don't immediately go, okay, next target. You have to go through a process of seeing if you can convince that club, because if you start moving through your options and going to plan D, E, F, and so on, eventually you're just not improving on the team. So you do need to try and convince. You do need to try and negotiate. Sometimes it works, i.e. Ramsdale, for instance, or Ben White, for instance, as players that, initially the club said no. Sheffield United said no. Brighton said no. Eventually you get to a stage where either you agree a price or you convince the player. It's not about wasting time. The time isn't wasted. You're trying to get deals done. Sometimes it's successful. Sometimes it's not. But you can work on more than one deal at once. So the Vlahovic situation has not affected the midfield situation. Both have just been difficult to try and complete during the January window. Arsenal will be well aware of the fact that there are players that you can activate release clauses for towards the end. So they're obviously going to spend the time during the first, 2/3 of the window minimum on trying to get the players that aren't as accessible as those release clause backup options. Let's see if they activate any release clauses for players towards the end of the window like they did with Thomas Partey. Let's just wait and see if that happens. But they haven't wasted time. It really bugs me when people talk about wasting time, because it's time used to try and get transformative figures into the club. And if it's successful, no one's going to remember the 3 weeks where we didn't sign them, like we did with Ramsdale, like we did with Ben White. No one remembers, or Tomiyasu. No one's looking at why didn't we go for Tomiyasu in the first 3 games of the season, because we've appreciated what he's done now, what he's done since he's signed. Things are forgotten so quickly. So there you go. Nimish says Vlahovic is not coming. He doesn't even want to talk to Arsenal. We should move on to someone else. He can at least talk and say he doesn't want to move now. And one of the other things is we don't know if the club has moved on. We only know through the reports that are feeding and, trickling through the pipeline. But ultimately, we don't 100% know what is going on behind the scenes. And we are going purely off the reports and the information that manages to leak through, which obviously gives us a very translucent view of what's going on and not the full picture. So that is also something that you have to take into account. According to Ornstein, says if we don't hit the like button, there's a very good chance that we extend Xhaka's contract an additional 10 years. Don't let this happen, people. I love John's inventive ways of convincing you guys to click that like button. Dana says, Tom, why don't we turn to Barcelona for the De Jong? Heard he loves Arsenal. Look, if he does love Arsenal and he is available, I would be absolutely up for trying to convince him to come. Let's see if that's something Arsenal do. But I just don't know why Barcelona would let him leave. And I don't know why he's being treated the same way that he is, because he's a brilliant midfielder. Rathaveri says, do you think that we have peaked with these players and need to do something fresh? Peaked? How young is this squad? We've not peaked with this team. This team is still developing. It's still improving. We are lacking a couple of crucial players in this team, a midfielder and a striker, and probably a backup right back, a backup midfielder. We're missing, and probably a backup wide forward, to be fair, as well. Although saying that, Pepe's absence has definitely been felt. But I do think that we are not peaking. We've not peaked with this team. Look how young it is. Look how much more we've got to give. Let's just see what we get. Olu says, love that, Tom. If we can get our plan A, that will elevate our team. So we will try. Liverpool waited for 4 months to get Van Dijk. In fact, they waited longer than that. Man United waited 2 years for Jadon Sancho. Did their fans moan that they wasted time? No, because when they got him in, then they're experiencing what it's like when they get him in. They didn't move to plan B because they know he will elevate the team. People just want to give up on transfers like that. Move on to the next one. We're wasting time. We're not going to get them. No, that's not how transfers work. It's just not how they work. And again, you're only seeing it through the glasses that are very translucent and you don't know the full picture. Arsenal need to try and get their primary targets. Failing that, they need to try and get the next best option, and they need to give themselves enough time to know that they can still get that next best option. January is always difficult. We know that. But they need to have planned something. I would have liked to have seen us maybe go for a loan option at the start of the window just to give us kind of a bit of reinforcement. And I think that showed in the game against Burnley that we lacked other options. But if we get Vlahovic at the end of the window, everything would be forgiven. If we get an Isak, if we get a Jonathan David, we are going to look back on this window and not remember how long it took to get them. I'm going to look back on it as the window that we bought in that quality striker that we needed. So let's wait and see. Let's go to Benji, who says, surely there are some players we have already done the groundwork on. We were linked with Bruno Guimaraes last summer. I don't know how it would take so long to get him in. It would take a long time if Lyon don't want to sell for a certain price. We're told that Lyon would accept a loan with an obligation. And we as fans read that report and we accept it as gospel. We accept it as that is 100% what Lyon want. When in reality, we don't know. In reality, that's all the information that's been fed through for either an agent or for a contact that's close to the club. But the reality is we don't actually know. We didn't know how much Leicester would accept for James Maddison in the summer. We didn't know whether he'd ever want to leave. We heard that he might, but we never knew that for certain. And so we base pure fact and statements that we type into chat boxes, that we say on YouTube channels, based on, hearsay. That's what we base it on. So when we say we are wasting time, we are bad in the window, we take too long to do transfers, we don't know the reality. So how we can speak in such definites at times it's misplaced. It is absolutely misplaced because we don't know the reality of the situation. Mickey says it's time to wake up from this Vlahovic nightmare. He isn't coming, and try to salvage what is left of this season. I think we should look at feasible options. What I would say, Mickey, is that there needs to be a cutoff. There absolutely needs to be a cutoff where it gives us enough time to sort a separate deal for a backup option during this window. This season is an absolute top opportunity to get into the top four, and we need to make sure we sign someone. So we need to have some cutoff point. But as long as they feel that there's a chance to sign Vlahovic, they will continue to try and do it. But we don't know what's going on ultimately. We don't know if we've moved on yet. All we know is what's reported through the grapevine. VJ says, even if Arsenal qualify for the Champions League, what are the chances Arsenal will survive the groups? I hate these. And with respect, Vijay, I hate this opinion. I absolutely despise this viewpoint. I don't know what the ambition is if it's not to get in the Champions League. And then to follow it up by saying, even if we get there, what chance do we have? It's about progressing. It's about taking the next step. It's about the fact that Liverpool got into the Champions League when they first got back in, when they finished above us to finish in the top four. They had one season in the Champions League, and it was so-so. And then after establishing themselves in the Champions League during that season, they brought in Alisson and they brought in Van Dijk, and then they took the next step forwards. If Arsenal were to take this team into the Champions League next season, would we win it? No. Would we win it if we added a top striker or a central midfielder? Probably still not enough to get to the Champions League final and win it. Could we do it the following season after adding another player and another top player on top of that after establishing ourselves in the competition? Maybe. And this is the point. This is the ridiculousness of these opinions to me, with respect, is to say what's the point of getting in the Champions League because we haven't got a chance of winning it. You have to get in it first to have a chance of winning it. You have to get in it to get the financial reward for being in it, to build your team better. And it frustrates me when people highlight or try to say there's no point being in the Champions League because we've got no chance of winning it. I'm sorry, but you need to take that step to get in it first, to build your team with better players through being in the competition, and to then build towards trying to get somewhere with it. It's like saying we've got no point trying to win the Premier League. We may as well just stop supporting Arsenal and go support Man City. But that's not what being a fan is. Being a fan is about backing your team and hoping they win the next game and turning things around. Not being a fan is saying, what's the point? Not being a fan is saying, I hope we lose so this manager gets sacked. That's not being a fan. Being a fan is that you hope to win the next game. You hope that things turn around. You hope that we qualify for the Champions League. You hope we can continue to progress. And there are some decisions sometimes that need to be made to help you get there. So at the end of the season, if we finish outside of Europe, one of the decisions would be to move on from Mikel Arteta. Because at that point, he's not progressed us in 3 seasons. You need to make a choice. But I'm sorry, it just frustrates me when you see opinions saying, what's the point of being in this competition? It's like people, do you remember when we were in the Champions League, when we were during a period where we weren't really investing, we couldn't really improve the squad like we are now? If only we'd had the spending power that we do now back when we were just, established in there under Arsene Wenger. We didn't, for whatever reason. Maybe Arsene Wenger just didn't want to spend it. We'll never know. He didn't tell us. His book told us nothing new. But the point is that people said, oh, let's try go into the Europa League because maybe we can win that. Well, we did that and we couldn't win it. And it's proven to be a real detriment to Arsenal's progression and the way in which we've moved forward. Sorry to go on a bit of a rant. It just really bugs me when people say, what's the point of being in a competition? To win it, to improve, to get better, to close the gap between ourselves with the teams above us. I'm wrapping things up there. I'm too annoyed to go any further. I'll be live on the Arsenal Way in an hour's time. So if you want to see me, hopefully a little bit calmer and talking about things with Bailey and Co, then do join me at 9:30 on the Arsenal Way. Link to the channel is in the description. I'll be live on the Arsenal Lounge at 8 p.m. tonight with Mo and Lev and Shaheen. So do join me over there in the chat box too. It's always good to see TGT gang represented in the chat box over there. Honestly, other than that, it's been an absolute pleasure to speak to you as always. I know I got annoyed towards the end, but it really gets me. It really gets me sometimes though. That point of view. What's the point? You're an Arsenal fan. Come on. Anyway, we move on, and fingers crossed we can see an improvement in the weeks to come. By the way, a couple of things I will say before I wrap up is we did a phone-in show a couple of days ago, and I see so many people in the video comments, not just on this channel, but I see so many people in the video comments if I go on Judge's channel or if I go on Sophie's channel or The Lounge, people that vehemently disagree with my point of view. I set up a phone-in show. I set up the opportunity. I tweet it out. I put it on here. I put it on Insta. I put it wherever. If you so seriously disagree with a point of view, if you're so worked up by things I say, come on the show and tell me. The door is open. Send us a DM at the Gooner Talk TV. Send me a message on Instagram at the Gooner Talk. If you so vehemently disagree with me that you're willing to throw insults into comment sections, I'm right here. Yeah? Don't be keyboard warriors. Don't be trolls. Genuinely try and come up with a genuine argument. I can take it. I'm a grown up. Messages are open, always up for discussion, always up to listening to other opinions, and absolutely, come at me if you like. I'll see you again very soon in an hour's time on the Arsenal Way. It's an absolute pleasure to speak with you, as it always is, and as always, up the Arsenal.